Canada, what's really going on with the polls? Because if you listen to the media, it sounds like Mark Carney, the Liberals' newest golden boy, is somehow winning over Canadians, even as the cost of living skyrockets, housing becomes unaffordable, small businesses are drowning, and trust in government is at an all-time low. But if you look closer, if you step outside of CBC headlines and legacy media narratives, you'll see a very different story. One where Pierre Poilievre is surging, where Canadians are hungry for change, and where the Bloc is quietly building momentum in Quebec, Carney's most critical battleground. Let's break this down. 1. Mark Carney, the media's new hope. The Liberals have pinned their hopes on Mark Carney, former Bank of Canada and Bank of England governor. They're selling him as a calm, competent financial expert, a steady hand. But Canadians aren't stupid. We haven't forgotten that Carney represents the same elite class that's completely out of touch with everyday struggles. He's a globalist banker, not someone who understands real Canadians. And the media is eating it up. Every week, there's a puff piece about how Carney's the grown-up in the room, or how he's closing the gap with Poilievre. But independent polling? Social sentiment? On-the-ground momentum? None of that lines up with what the mainstream is reporting. 2. Pierre Poilievre, the real frontrunner. Pierre Poilievre is connecting with working-class Canadians, small business owners, families, and young people who just want to own a home, afford groceries, and live without government interference. He's blunt, unapologetic, and he's resonating. Online polling shows a massive lead for the Conservatives. He's drawing record-breaking crowds. Meanwhile, the Liberals have to bus in people just to fill a photo op. The media says it's neck and neck, but the streets say Poilievre has already won the people. 3. The Bloc factor, Quebec's wildcard. Here's something the media isn't talking about enough. The Bloc Québécois is gaining serious traction in Quebec. That's a big problem for Mark Carney, because if he can't lock down Quebec, his national path to victory crumbles. Quebec voters are turning to the Bloc not because they're separatists, but because they're sick of federal overreach, and they're not buying what Carney is selling. If Carney loses key ridings to the Bloc, even a strong Ontario showing won't be enough. 4. Polls versus reality. We've seen this movie before. Let's not forget what happened in the US, in the UK, and even right here in Canada in past elections. The polls lied. They told us Trudeau had momentum when he was actually losing ground. They downplayed Poilievre's rise until it was too obvious to ignore. Why? Because they're not objective. They're tools to shape public perception, not reflect it. Landline surveys, urban sampling bias, weighted algorithms. They're gaming the system to push a narrative. And that narrative is, don't worry, Carney's got this. Spoiler alert, he doesn't. 5. Canadians aren't buying it. Here's what Canadians really want. Lower taxes, affordable housing, freedom to speak, protest, and live without government micromanagement. An end to carbon taxes and inflationary policies. Mark Carney doesn't represent any of that. Pierre Poilievre does. And the Bloc? They're proving that even in Quebec, people are rejecting status quo federalism. So what's the truth? The polls are lying. Or, at best, they're being manipulated to keep you in line. But Canadians are waking up. If you're tired of the spin, the games, the propaganda, you're not alone. Share this podcast, talk to your neighbors, and stay informed. Because the only poll that matters is the ballot box, and if things keep trending the way they are, Ottawa is in for a major shakeup. Until next time, stay free, stay bold, and stay Canadian.